Everybody like and subscribe, praise the bell icon. Story number 1.
It was late one night when Adam found himself deep in the recesses of the deep web, driven by a mix of curiosity and reckless thrill. He had heard rumors, stories whispered online, in chat rooms, and from friends who claimed to have seen things that should never be seen. Most people were too scared to go further than the surface, but Adam wasn't like most people. He wanted to know the truth. The night started out normal enough. He was at his computer, the dim glow from the screen illuminating his otherwise dark room. The only sounds were the clicking of his keyboard and the occasional buzz of his phone. He had started with something simple, an innocent search on a hidden forum where people posted strange and unsettling videos. But as his clicks led him deeper, the content grew darker. It wasn't just weird, it was terrifying. Faces contorted in agony, strange figures lurking in the background, and videos that felt like they were recorded in places they shouldn't have been. He clicked on a link titled, "The Things That Watch You." Something about it felt different from the rest. Most videos on the deep web were disturbing, sure, but this one seemed to beckon him. He hesitated, but the morbid curiosity won out. The video loaded, and his screen filled with static for a moment. Then it began. At first, it looked like a grainy, old-school home video. A shaky camera showed a small, dimly lit room, empty except for a chair in the center. As the camera panned slowly, Adam's heart rate quickened. There was something unsettling about the silence, the absence of any sound but the low hum of the camera. Then, suddenly, there was movement, a shadow in the corner of the room. Adam leaned forward in his chair, staring at the screen. The shadow seemed to grow longer, darker, as if it was alive. The figure, obscured by the darkness, didn't move, but it felt wrong. The next few seconds were a blur. The camera jolted, almost as if it was yanked away from its position. Adam could hear breathing now, sharp, uneven gasps, almost like someone was struggling to stay quiet. The camera dropped to the floor, and the screen filled with a blurry image of feet. Adam tried to make out the figure, but before he could, a dark shape lunged at the screen, followed by a deafening sound, like someone screaming directly into a microphone. The camera shook violently before it cut to black. Adam sat there in stunned silence, unsure if he had even seen what he thought he had. He stared at the screen for a long time, his heart pounding. The video wasn't over, though. It cut to a new frame, a different angle, this time showing the same room, but with something new. The chair in the center was now facing toward the camera, empty, but there were strange marks on the floor, scratches, deep and erratic, as though someone had been dragged across it. Without warning, the screen flickered again, and the room changed. The figure from earlier, now more defined, appeared in the doorway. It was hunched over, its body contorted in unnatural ways. Its skin seemed stretched, pale and thin. There was something about its face, or the lack of one, that made Adam's stomach churn. The figure moved toward the chair, its movements jerky, like a puppet controlled by strings. As it sat down, the camera zoomed in on its face, or what was supposed to be a face. In that moment, Adam felt something he couldn't quite explain, a sense of being watched. He turned around quickly, half expecting to see someone in his room, but there was no one there. His heart skipped a beat, and his eyes returned to the screen. The figure in the chair now stared directly at the camera, its head tilted slightly. It didn't blink, it didn't breathe, it just stared. And Adam realized, with a cold shiver running down his spine, that it wasn't part of the video. It was looking at him. A chill ran through Adam as the figure's lips, if they could be called that, parted. It whispered something, a series of low, guttural sounds that seemed to seep into his very bones. The words were unintelligible at first, but they grew clearer, almost as if the figure was speaking directly to him. "Now, you're part of it." The words echoed in his ears, but it wasn't the sound that disturbed him most. It was the feeling that followed, the feeling that someone or something was right behind him. Adam spun around, but the room was empty. Sweat dripped down his forehead as he scrambled to close the browser, to disconnect, to erase everything. But the screen wouldn't turn off. He tried everything, Control-Alt-Delete, pulling the power cable from the back of the PC, but it was as if the computer had taken on a life of its own. A cold dread settled in his stomach as the figure from the video appeared again, this time on the screen in full, distorted color. It was clearer now, more defined. It was right in front of him, its eyes wide open, unblinking. In that instant, Adam felt a sharp, painful sensation at the back of his neck. He froze, not daring to move. His breath quickened as he tried to make sense of what was happening. But there was no time. The screen flickered again, and the words appeared. "We're watching." A soft, slow knock came from his door. Adam's body stiffened. He had been home alone for hours. His heart pounded in his chest as the knocking grew louder, more insistent. Then, silence. The knocking stopped, but the feeling of being watched did not. Adam didn't open the door. He didn't want to. Something told him that if he did, he would never be the same. His eyes darted back to the screen, now completely still. The figure was gone. The door remained locked. But Adam knew one thing for sure now. The deep web wasn't just a place for secrets. It was a place where things, real, terrifying things, watched and waited for the curious to slip too far. And once they had your attention, they made sure you never left.
Story number 2.
It was just another late night when Jason decided to browse the dark corners of the internet, searching for something to satisfy his thirst for thrill. He'd heard stories of strange, unexplained phenomena on the deep web, and though most of the rumors seemed exaggerated, he couldn't resist the temptation to explore. Armed with nothing but his curiosity and a sense of invincibility, Jason dug deeper into the murky depths of the hidden internet. At first, it was all just mundane stuff. Bizarre forums filled with conspiracy theories, cryptic messages, and unsettling videos that seemed designed to freak you out for the sake of it. But then he found something that caught his attention, a thread titled The Auction Site. Jason's pulse quickened. An auction site on the deep web? He clicked on the link without hesitation. The page loaded, displaying a minimalist design, nothing flashy, just black background with white text. In bold letters, it read, "For the brave only, bid on the unimaginable." The auction items listed were bizarre, to say the least. A breath of the forgotten, a drop of unholy water, a record of unspoken words. Each item was accompanied by vague descriptions and the chilling note that once you bid, you couldn't back out. Jason scrolled down, his eyes glued to the screen. He didn't think any of it could be real, but the idea of it all intrigued him, especially the last item listed, the silent ones. It had no description, just a price that kept increasing by the second. A few minutes passed and Jason found himself typing in a bid just to see what would happen. A confirmation message popped up almost instantly. It was strange, too quick, almost automated. It read, "You have placed your bid. Please wait for further instructions." His fingers trembled as he clicked around, trying to find out more, but there was nothing more to find. He'd placed a bid, and now he was stuck. He sat back in his chair, waiting. It was absurd, just a glitch, a fake site, he told himself. Nothing was going to happen. Then the email came. "You have won." The message was simple. "You have won the auction for the silent ones. The cost is your peace. You will know what they are soon enough. Prepare yourself." Jason's heart began to race. He slammed the laptop shut, but the message kept replaying in his mind. The silent ones. What did it mean? Who were they? And why had he been so reckless? The next few days were a blur of unease. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He had trouble sleeping, and when he did, he woke in cold sweats, heart pounding, certain that something was in the room with him. The air felt heavy, thick, as though it was pressing in on him from all sides. It was late on the third night after the auction when Jason felt it for the first time. A whisper, a voice, barely audible. His breath caught in his throat as the voice seemed to come from right behind him. He spun around, but his room was empty. The silence that followed was suffocating, almost unnatural. But then he heard it again. This time, closer. "You shouldn't have bid," it whispered. "Now you're ours." Jason's heart hammered in his chest. He grabbed his phone, attempting to call someone, anyone. But as he lifted the device to his ear, the screen flickered, showing a black figure standing in the corner of his room. His blood ran cold. There was no one there, but the voice was, "I see you. I've always seen you." That night, Jason didn't sleep. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the wind outside felt like something watching him. And each time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes, images of dark shapes, of shadows moving in ways they shouldn't, of faces in the dark that weren't there before. He couldn't tell if they were nightmares or reality. The next morning, Jason made a decision. He packed his things, intending to leave town, hoping that somehow the nightmare would end. But as he stepped outside, he froze. Every person he passed on the street, they were staring at him. Their eyes were dark, vacant, as if they weren't looking at him, but through him. He could feel it now, the weight of their gaze pulling at him, tugging him back towards something he couldn't understand. One person, an elderly man, stepped in front of him. He smiled, a slow, knowing grin that chilled Jason to the core. "They're coming," the old man whispered, his voice raspy, "and they always get what they want." Jason's mind raced. His heart pounded in his chest. He didn't know where to go, who to trust, or how to escape the constant feeling of being hunted. He turned back toward his apartment, but when he reached the door, he saw something that made his blood run cold. On his door, in red spray paint, were the words, "We are the silent ones." His pulse quickened, panic rising in his chest. He rushed inside, locking the door behind him, but it didn't matter. The silence in the room was oppressive. And then there was that voice again. "Jason, we've been waiting, and you've already lost." The next few hours were a blur of unease and terror. Jason couldn't remember the exact moment when everything changed, when the figures first appeared. But when he looked around the room, they were there. Standing in the corners, their faces twisted into grotesque smiles, their eyes dark and endless. They didn't speak anymore. They didn't need to. Their presence filled the room, suffocating him. Jason had no choice but to surrender, to face the reality of what he had done. The Silent Ones were not just a myth, not just some twisted auction. They were real. And once they set their sights on you, there was no escape.
Story number 3.
It was supposed to be an ordinary night for Claire. She had just moved into a new apartment in the city, a small, cozy unit on the 5th floor of an older building. The price was right, the location convenient, and the landlord seemed friendly enough. Still, something felt off, but she chalked it up to the typical jitters of moving to a new place. That night, after unpacking a few boxes, she settled in with a book, the soft hum of the city's nightlife filtering through the window. Her phone buzzed with a text from her best friend, Olivia. "How's the new place? I hope you're not hearing weird noises yet." Claire smiled and replied, "No weird noises. So far, it's all quiet." But as soon as she set her phone down, the air in the room seemed to shift. She felt a sudden chill, despite the heater running. Claire shrugged it off, thinking it was just the wind blowing through the walls. The old building was notorious for drafts, after all. She went to the kitchen to make herself a cup of tea. That's when she heard it, the softest sound, like a whisper coming from behind her. Claire froze, her hand hovering over the kettle. She turned slowly, expecting to see someone behind her, but the kitchen was empty. Her heart thudded in her chest. Maybe it was just her imagination. But as she poured the hot water into her mug, the whisper came again. This time clearer, louder, like it was right in her ear. "Get out!" Claire spun around, her pulse racing. Nothing. No one. She shook her head, trying to calm herself. It had to be the stress of moving. She decided to ignore it and sat down on the couch, clutching the warm mug in her hands, but the air felt thick, heavy, as though it was pressing down on her. The lights flickered. Then, another whisper. "Leave now." Claire stood up, her legs shaky. She didn't know what was going on, but something was wrong. A gnawing feeling settled in her gut, and she couldn't shake the sensation that someone or something was watching her. She glanced nervously around the apartment. The walls, the floor, even the ceiling seemed to close in on her. And that's when she saw it. A shadow, dark, long, and stretching across the floor from the corner of the room. It didn't match the shape of anything in the room. The longer she stared, the more it seemed to move, shifting ever so slightly, like it was trying to reach her. Her breath caught in her throat, her hands trembling as she backed away, knocking over her tea. But the shadow didn't retreat. It advanced, growing larger with each step she took. "Get out, or you will stay forever." Claire didn't wait to hear more. She grabbed her purse and bolted for the door, but when she reached it, she couldn't open it. The handle wouldn't budge. Panicking, she twisted and pulled with all her strength, but it felt as though something on the other side was holding the door shut. The whisper came again, this time not in her ear but in the air around her, like it was coming from every corner of the room. "You are already ours." Claire spun around, eyes wide with terror. The shadow was no longer just a shadow. It was now a figure, standing tall in the center of the room. It had no face, only darkness where its features should have been. She could feel its presence like a weight on her chest, suffocating her. Her hands shook as she finally managed to open the door, but as she stepped into the hallway, she stopped dead in her tracks. There at the far end of the corridor stood the figure again, its long, bony fingers curled as if beckoning her. Without thinking, Claire turned and ran, her footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. She didn't stop until she reached the lobby and burst through the front doors into the cold night air. The next day, Claire packed her things and left the apartment for good. The landlord was confused, even a little annoyed, when she explained that she couldn't stay another night, but Claire wasn't going to risk it. She never went back. Several weeks later, Claire learned that the building she had moved into had a tragic history. The previous tenants had reported strange occurrences too. Whispers in the night, shadows in the corners of their rooms. In fact, several of them had mysteriously disappeared over the years, without a trace. The police had never found answers. As for Claire, she never stayed in an old building again. And whenever she passed that street, she couldn't help but glance at the building's darkened windows, knowing something was still there, waiting for the next tenant to hear the whispers, and when they did, it would be too late to leave.